Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
And it's 5:07, just like that. It's 5:07. It's O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here. It's a Wednesday morning, and all is right with the world. So great to hear your voice and have my voice be heard. Julie Gunlock, good morning.
Good morning.
To you, my friend.
Glad to have you back.
I'm just excited that my microphone's working.
Yes.
I mean, I was back yesterday, but if you don't hear my voice right, it doesn't feel like I'm back.
Right.
6:35, Cal Thomas will be our guest. At 7:05, Angela Morabito, one of our pals over there who used to work at the education department. And boy, it looks like it's really happening. It's really happening, Julie. Education department is on the downslide. 8:05, Jim Hansen will join us on the reports of a Ukraine ceasefire. Also, as predicted here yesterday, Republicans did pass that CR, so no government shutdown. I'm sorry. I know that everyone was sort of looking forward to all the drought. You know who's hurt hardest by this is Jake Tapper and Dana Bash, because they love furrowing their brow and wringing their hands over those mean Republicans. That's all coming up. Julie Gunlock. Let's get to that Department of Education, though, because I know this is something that you and our friends at Independent Women's Forum have been spending so much time and energy sort of focused on and trying to really reach this point where finally we're getting local control, local funding, local everything back to the hands of the parents in our neighborhoods for our school systems. And the first major step of actually succeeding there is ending the monopolistic big government Washington, D.C. control over education via the department. And as promised, it looks like it's really happening. They really are moving. Tell me about these latest steps to dismantle the department.
Well, there was an interesting sort of note that went out to all education staffers yesterday. It said, I'm reading from a Fox News article here. It says early Tuesday, a memo was sent to all Ed Department employees informing them that Department of Education offices will be closed Tuesday evening, so that was last night, through Wednesday due to security reasons was the only reason given. Employees were instructed to leave the offices by 6 p.m. Ed Secretary Linda McMahon said today's reduction in force reflects the Department of Education's commitment to efficiency, accountability, and ensuring that resources are directed where they matter most. That's a nice way of saying we're closing it down. So she went on to say it's a significant step toward restoring greatness of the American education system. You know, Larry, that's what it is. It is restoring education in America to what it used to be. Yeah. It has so lost its path. What we're not. I mean, you look at the nation's report card, and again, this isn't me saying it. This isn't Republicans saying it. This is the national report card, which assesses how Americans are doing. And we are at the bottom of the barrel in math and reading. We have a whole generation of kids who essentially did not get an education.
Yeah. I was going to ask: does this include Randy Weingarten's office at the Department of Education?
I'm sure.
Is she shutting her office down as well? Because that's really the most important.
I thought that was at the White House under Biden. That's already been shut down.
Well, she sort of bounced back and forth.
Yes, that's true.
And apparently the Justice Department, as she ordered the criminal investigation into the domestic terrorist parents. So listen, you don't have to threaten me with a good time here and convince me that the Department of Education needs to be shut down and the money needs to be streamlined back into our local hands. But what exactly does this development do? Because the last I checked, there were threats that Trump can't single-handedly do this. He can't unilaterally shut down. He can't unilaterally fire people. There's going to be lawsuits. So specifically, this latest development here, is it just is this the preliminary step here in the attempts to tell everybody to go home, knowing that this will trigger the lawsuit that they're more than ready to have? Yeah,
of course there'll be lawsuits, but there are actually going to be. There was some sort of conversations yesterday on this that there is going to be reductions in staff, and I think those notifications are going to go out tonight, is what I read. Okay. When Trump took office, the agency's workforce numbered 4,133 employees. That will shrink to around 2,100 employees, the department said in a news release. The workers being let go will receive their full pay and benefits through June 9th, as well as substantial severance pay or retirement benefits based on the length of their employment, the agency said. This is a reduction in force. And again, these notices, I think some more of them will come out today. But I will also say...
So just real fast. So the intent is to go from 4,100 to 2,100. Roughly,
yeah,
and basically, as of now, the offices, everybody stays home as all the offices are closed, and
Enjoy
I guess that's
off.
going to be some sort of reassessment.
Yep.
In terms of the workspace, I guess, and the remaining workers. Well, what's interesting is 259 of them actually accepted the deferred resignation program.
Right.
So he threw out the option and said, "Listen, you want the deferred resignation? You can get paid through the end of this fiscal year, through the end of September." You'll get your pension triggered and everything will happen. 259 people said, okay, great. And now 2,180 additional are sent without the benefit of the early retirement.
Right.
options.
And, okay, you're right. That's right. I will say one note about Randy Weingarten, because all the reports, she was on the news last night, pounding her fist, seeming really concerned. She is so happy about this, and let me tell you why. This is totally going to strengthen these unions, and they are going to fundraise like crazy off of this. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, look, she's now going to present herself as a survivor, and as Trump is dismantling the entire education system in this country, which he is not. She is the only one representing teachers, she'll, say she cares about kids. She really doesn't. But I firmly believe that this actually will strengthen the position of the unions. And, look, I think the unions, they'll have their time. But right now, Randy's pretty happy.
Well, okay, if it strengthens them, that's fine, but it also means that they're going to be more accountable locally. And this wakes everybody up.
That's right.
Angela Morabita is going to join us at 7:05, but the bottom line here is, listen, they can come back. They're going to exercise their strength and exercise their power on a local basis. They're going to scream that they're the only ones that are going to be able to help ensure the education of your children and that your paid teachers are properly funded. But for the longest time now, since the late 70s, they've been able, and as have local school boards and, frankly, governors and state legislatures, have been able to rely on this huge cash cow of money that's been coming from the federal government through this giant monolith. And instead of actually debating and arguing and winning public sentiment at a local basis, all they've had to do was convince a president, convince a secretary, and convince some key legislators in Washington, D.C. to force policies from the top down. And now, instead, they're going to have to convince local politicians that are more accountable to you right in your backyard to try to get the agendas that they've been able to push from Washington. Now they're going to have to push them locally. And in some areas, maybe in Northern Virginia and in Maryland, they'll be able to do that. But in other areas, they won't. And now the game is afoot. And now this is where politics really does hit. The rubber hits the road, and we'll be able to actually be engaged. And we'll make some change. And our kids will benefit. And that's fine. Listen, the fight is not over. It just makes the fight local. It's 5:15, WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives. Did that make sense? I hope that made sense. I think it made sense.
Good.
WMAL, making sense of the news.
This is why so many people are so mad about it, because they're just taking opportunity away from kids that don't have it. So kids of billionaires, they have it. They go to private schools. Everyone else, 90%, go to public schools. Don't take away their opportunity.
So let's stay on the facts.
Sorry,
no,
I'm
do
really
not
angry about this.
No, because this
I'm
is what
really
people
angry.
need to hear.
I taught kids in Clara Barton High School in Brooklyn, New York.
Poor Randy.
Randy's really losing it, yeah. Back to the billionaires class warfare. Billionaires will put their kids in private school. They don't care about it, but now they're taking out. What opportunities are being taken away from? It's incoherent. I do like the MSNBC host actually saying, okay, well, let's get back to the facts.
Right, exactly. Yeah, Randy doesn't deal in facts. But also, where was Randy? Where was Randy? Where was her emotion and her outrage when the schools were closed? Oh, that's right. She actually wanted the schools to stay closed so that she could negotiate more money for teachers who refused to go back into the classroom. Where was Randy's outrage and sadness, rather, when kids were committing suicide because of the isolation and loneliness during COVID, because she insisted that the school stay closed? This woman's faux tears, her crocodile tears, her faux emotions, it's so revolting to me. Nothing makes me more angry than seeing Randy pretend to be upset about this.
Well, especially based on the language that she just used, taking opportunities away from kids. Oh, you mean like the opportunity to go to the school that we've been paying for in our local neighborhood? Right. Billionaires, they don't care because they'll be putting their kids in private school. Oh, yeah, like exactly what happened during COVID-19.
Well, and also exactly what school choice advocates are voting for. Let's give people the right and ability to go into private schools. You absolute...
Yeah. Meanwhile, for those of you who are interested in President Trump's efforts to reduce the size of the federal government and to expose waste, fraud, and abuse and get rid of, let's say, some dead weight here and there of employees who, listen, I know a lot of you are federal employees. You know who I'm talking about when I say the dead weight. You know for a fact when you go to work that there's a good percentage of your coworkers that you're carrying, that you're dragging across the finish line, that you make look good, and there's no way, they're a federal employee, there's no way to fire them even though they're lousy at their job. Well, if you're looking at getting some reforms there so that the federal government can actually operate like any other business in this country, you'll be happy to hear some more news, not just the Department of Education finally, but how about the EPA? Lee Zeldin has notified 8 recipients of $20 billion in grants that they have also been terminated. This was $20 billion of what he's referring to as these gold bars. You remember James O'Keefe had a undercover video of a EPA employee talking about how they were throwing gold bars off the Titanic, trying to spend as much money and get it out of there before the Trump administration came in. Well, here's Lee Zeldin describing the latest gold bars that he's discovered and the grants that have been terminated at the EPA. Listen up.
Over the past few weeks, it has been a high priority of mine to identify and bring to light countless issues regarding a Biden EPA gold bars scheme. $20 billion of your tax dollars were parked at an outside financial institution in a deliberate effort to limit government oversight, doling out your money through just 8 pass-through, politically connected, unqualified, and in some cases brand new NGOs. The money has since been frozen, and the Department of Justice and FBI have been investigating. You may have heard how a group linked to Stacey Abrams received $2 billion after reporting a mere $100 in total revenue the year before. Or how the founding director of the EPA's program dished out $5 billion to his former employer after shaping the legislation that created the program from his White House post.
Yeah, exactly. This is, and you have heard that. So, by the way, I love Stacey Abrams tried to do a publicity tour over the weekend to try to defend the program. It turns out, you know what the program was that she was getting $2 billion for? That she, Stacey Abrams, Environmental Crusaders.
Replacing people's appliances.
Right. They go into an underserved community, replace their appliances, which reduced their energy costs.
Yeah.
It's that's what we need. That's what we need this organization for. And I don't remember anybody voting for that crap. It's over. That kind of thing is over. How many of these NGOs just got formed in the last 3 months?
That's right.
And now suddenly they have billions of dollars to where boy, that's a great scheme. Why don't you and I get in on that kind of thing? I blame you. You know how the government works. We could have formed an environmental advocacy NGO a few months ago, and we'd be sitting on a gold mine. I'd be Scrooge McDuck doing, snow angels in that pile of gold right now.
You're right. I do often go, you know what? I'm doing DC wrong. I really am.
Exactly. I had to drag my butt out of bed this early in the morning. You think Stacey Abrams is awake right now? Anyway. Well, apparently it's over, or at least it's starting to be over. Not only is this good news for those of us who are looking for a reduction in the scale and scope of the federal government since 1987.
Yeah.
But also this is the kind of news that is very, very necessary as not only the continuing resolution has been passed and the reconciliation process going on in Congress, but also as Elon Musk continues to be under fire. And these are very real, tangible results, right, of his efforts and the efforts to finally get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. And that's tangible, and that's good. Like I said, Angela Morabito at 7:05, talk about the Department of Education. And there's more, by the way. There's more updates out of that, what appears to be incredibly just corrupt from top to bottom, USAID. We'll get to that coming up in just a moment. It's 5:23.
Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:37, O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here Wednesday morning, hump day here in the nation's capital. We got you covered all across the board. Coming up at 6:35, Kel Thomas will join us, as he always does on Wednesdays. 7:05, Angela Morabito used to be with the Education Department. Now she'll maybe give us a little vision into what it's going to look like post-Education Department if these moves continue down the road that they're started. And then at 8:05, Jim Hansen, foreign policy and national security dude, will talk about what appears to be an accepted ceasefire proposal from Ukraine. Secretary Rubio says, yeah, this looks good, let's do it. Now, what will the Russians say? Jim Hansen at 8:05. I'm Larry O'Connor, and Julie Gunlock and I, we have a bit of a ceasefire ourselves going. I'm sure people have noticed.
I think Michael's trying to wake me up here with this upbeat music, dancing
Listen
here.
to it. I'm sorry, are there issues with you waking up this morning, Julie?
No, you're like, shut up.
I joke because actually this morning yours truly had a bit of a slow start, as it were.
Indeed, you did.
Which is rare. It
was almost me hosting.
Usually, I am the first one in the office, and not so much today. Hey, if you're working over at USAID, you're not, are you? Because USAID.
No, you're fast asleep.
A senior official at USAID has now instructed the agency's remaining staff to convene at the agency's former headquarters in Washington. This was yesterday for an all-day group effort to destroy documents.
Good God.
Many of which contained secret information. That doesn't sound normal, does it?
No, it doesn't.
USAID, this is according to Politico, official told remaining staffers, shred and burn all your documents. The mass document destruction order marks the latest step to dismantle the... Oh, is that what it is? Hey, guys, we're shutting down. We're going out of business, so make sure that you shred and burn everything. That's not how you shut down an agency. That's how you cover up a crime.
Look for anything with the name Hunter.
Yeah.
That goes in the shredder first. Yeah.
What is going on here? The fact that this even made it to Politico and they published it tells you a little bit as well.
Interestingly, though, Larry, the White House is pushing back a little bit. They're saying this is a bit of like an unnecessary freak out. There's a spokesman named Anna Kelly, a spokesman for the White House, downplayed such concerns on social media. She said this was sent to roughly 36 employees. That's kind of big. That's kind of a lot. She said the documents.
It was only 36. Come on.
It's interesting how you phrase things. If you say 36 and 36, 36 doesn't sound like that many. It says the documents involved were old, mostly courtesy content, which is content from other agencies, and the originals still exist on classified computer systems. And then she said, more fake news hysteria. And then a former USAID staffer actually confirmed that this email went out and describing the destruction of agency documents. And this person said it was unprecedented. So
the headlines are somewhat disconcerting, but then when you drill down, it's like, no, we're shutting down, and there's a bunch of we got to clear out these offices, and you don't just let anybody pick through them. No, I do get it. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who has now been sort of charged with, we don't need this separate agency that doesn't have accountability or at least very hard to find the accountability. This is part of the whole USAID scam here.
Yeah, totally.
Is that it was sort of set up in this separate autonomous zone where if anyone questioned what was going on, it was hard to figure out who was in charge. Like, who approved this? Who authorized
and
this? And everyone starts pointing
it was
their fingers.
cloaked in humanitarian aid, which much of it really wasn't.
And promoting American values,
right.
like
like
the transgender
transgenderism.
Sesame Street. Yeah,
that's nice.
So President Trump rightly said, okay, this is supposed to be for U.S. government money going to foreign non-government organizations to promote America's interests. That sounds like a State Department thing. So Secretary of State Marco Rubio, you're going to take over, you evaluate this, you figure out what's needed. And he announced that more than 80% of the programs have now been canceled. That's Secretary of Rubio. 80%. So in just a handful of weeks, Rubio looks at this and said, don't need that, don't need that, don't need that. 80% of the programs now have been eliminated.
There's a word for this. It's called right sizing, making something what it should be. And USAID had become so bloated because it really was this place for pet projects, Democrat pet projects, and really destructive things, really un-American, anti-American things were being funded through USAID. So, I actually think 80% of USAID programs being canceled is a good start. But let's get some more.
The other 20% will be redistributed to the agencies that are best equipped to
handle them.
And I'm sure there's redundancy and overlap there too. But the other 20% will now be handled under the State Department, or apparently, based on some of the things we're seeing, it'll be handled by the CIA, which again raises one's eyebrows as to why this separate agency, not under the auspices of the Defense Department, not under the auspices of the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, was involved in programs that quite obviously were, well, shall we say, covert and handled certain projects overseas. I'm trying to be as delicate as possible. Certain projects overseas that perhaps were not just do good and feel good programs.
Not just handing out rice and grain and to hungry people.
We were currying favors with individuals who would end up helping us topple a unfriendly government, apparently. And hey, keep that kind of program with the CIA where it belongs. No, wait, actually, they shouldn't be doing that either. Oh, gosh, I'm so confused. It's 5:43.
Mark Levin, weekdays 6 till 9 on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
I mean, it opens up so many questions. Like, when was the last time you were in Berlin? Have you tested other German cities? Is this a Western European thing or just a German experiment?
Okay, you're done.
Speaking of sexual perversion, Ukraine. Secretary Rubio yesterday announced alongside, this is in Saudi Arabia, where discussions have been taking place with various entities trying to, utilize this shuttle diplomacy where, Rubio goes in and talks to the Russians in one room and then talks to the Ukrainians in another room. And why aren't they all staying in the same room together? And what's going to happen? Well, Secretary Rubio yesterday with National Security Advisor Mike Waltz made a pretty important announcement on the latest with these ceasefire discussions. Here's cut 3, Secretary Marco Rubio.
Today we made an offer that the Ukrainians have accepted, which is to enter into a ceasefire and into immediate negotiations to end this conflict in a way that's enduring and sustainable and accounts for their interests, their security, their ability to prosper as a nation. I want to personally we both want to thank the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, His Majesty, for hosting us, for making this possible. They've been instrumental in this process, and we're very grateful to them for hosting us here today. And hopefully we'll take this offer now to the Russians. And we hope that they'll say yes, to peace. The ball is now in their court. And but again, the President's objective here is, number one, above everything else, he wants the war to end. And I think today Ukraine has taken a concrete step in that regard. We hope the Russians will reciprocate.
By the way, one has to assume that we could have gotten to this point probably 10 days ago had Zelensky not done his little song and dance and dinner theater project there in the Oval Office. For Rubio and Waltz to stand there, thanking the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, standing in front of the United States flag, saying, we have a deal here, we're now going to take it to the Russians. There is no possible way that they would have done that and given that image and delivered that message if they didn't think that this is a deal that Russia would take. And
Right.
it is fascinating to, instead of announce, we've made a deal both sides have agreed to, the fact that Ukraine has agreed and she says, now we're going to go talk to the Russians. That's a power move right there.
It is.
That is a bit of a poker move. Trump was asked about this and said that he would be personally calling Vladimir Putin in the next day or two to bring them on board if necessary. So watch that space. It is a fascinating sort of gamesmanship going on there. But I assure you, if they weren't confident that they could sell this to the Russians, they would not have made this announcement. But it definitely forces Moscow's hand.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to watch how people react. There are people in Washington that want this to continue. They want
Yes.
this war to continue. They want American boots on the ground. They want European boots on the ground. So be prepared to see a lot of criticism of this deal, even if it brings peace, because there won't. Look, and these negotiations, someone's going to have to. Both sides are going to have to give up something. So it's going to be,
Including Liz Cheney's side.
yes, including.
You shouldn't say both sides. You should say all sides.
Yes.
You got the Russians, you got the Ukrainians, and then
Yeah,
you
Liz Cheney.
got Northrop Grumman.
Exactly. That's exactly what I meant. Yes.
We'll see where they said. By the way, if you want an indication of how this went over, Ukraine is claiming that overnight Russia launched 3 missile attacks and 133 drones
Hey.
overnight. Which may make you think, oh, Russia doesn't like this. No, actually, that might just be Russia sort of sending a statement. It's like, okay, fine, we're going to have peace soon, but we're going to, bombard you a little bit more before we get that peace.
Yeah.
Who knows? But that's according to the Ukrainian military. They said that while hours after this announcement, the Air Force shot down 98 drones. Another 20 drones didn't reach their targets due to electronic warfare countermeasures. Didn't say what happened to the other 15 drones, but. This war has been going on.
That should really motivate the Ukrainian government to continue this march towards peace, and hopefully Russia will agree to sit down and negotiate, because this is going to keep happening. These drones, these missile launches.
There's been so much carnage in
Yes,
this, and
yes.
and I will continue to maintain that we could have had a ceasefire weeks after this began.
Yes.
But the Biden administration pulled a deal off the table. That's what the reports at the time suggested. So Trump said he'd reach out to Putin over the next few days, bring him on board with a ceasefire deal. And here's his quote. He said, I know we have a big meeting with Russia tomorrow, meaning today, and some great conversations hopefully will ensue. And then he said, it takes 2 to tango.
Well, I'm looking forward to talking to Jim Hansen about this at 8:05.